five panelists and Jay. So I guess at 7:01, we'll call to order the first meeting of the St. Mark's Street Park Working Group. It's still a mouthful. Maybe we'll
Yeah, it just trips right off the tongue, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I think in our agenda, I think the purpose of this is at first just kind of a basic organizational meeting. And I think there were 3 items on the agenda. Introductions, election of a chair, vice chair, and a secretary. And that's per the working group charge. And then discussion of next steps about how to organize ourselves to meet our charge. I think at first makes sense to, I can introduce myself and then maybe we go around the room here and just explain, once again, who we are and why we joined the group. And I also wanted to let everyone know that at last night's select board meeting, the board also appointed Bill Sines to our working group. But Bill is not here tonight because he's also a member of the master plan committee, which has a meeting which conflicts with this time. So Bill is, he also serves on I call it the ADA committee, Americans with Disability Act, but it really has its new name is the Southborough Public Accessibility Committee. And I think Bill is retired and has been involved in a lot of different town committees, including the master plan committee. So we look forward to his participation. So I'm Andrew Dennington. I'm a member of the select board. And I have been involved in a bunch of different town committees over the years. I was on the ZBA, the Zoning Board of Appeals, from like 2014 to 2019. I was chair for a couple of years. I was on the advisory committee, and I was elected to the select board in May of last year. And in terms of what I do for work, I'm an attorney from Massachusetts. I have an interest in history, studied history as an undergraduate. And I'm really interested in this working group. I think it's a great opportunity to help contribute towards a park which can be really of great lasting value to the town, right in the center of town. And also at this particular moment, I think that it's exciting to think about having some design features of the park that recognize Native American history, where all the rest of the town center is focused on early colonial presence. I think we would have an interesting balance coming right in that area. Marguerite, do you want to
Okay, I'll make it quick. First, I want to say that Wednesday nights are a good meeting night for me. I don't know how it works for everybody else. The Tuesdays are full and the Thursdays are full, but the Wednesday is sort of open, so I don't know how that sits. And I've lived in town for a long time. My son went to Algonquin. Andrew and I, as it turns out, we discovered a few days ago, had both attended the same university in New York, so this has given us something else to talk about. I'm the chair of the Library Board of Trustees. I've been on that board for 11 years. I'm on Youth and Family Services. I have familiarity with how town meeting works. I've prepared a number of budgets. I've dealt with the Board of Selectmen in various capacities, and advisory in various capacities. So the main thing I bring here, aside from my absolute desire to create a good sacred space here in the middle of Southborough for the people who were here before the colonials, is that, I lost my train of thought, is that I think we can do something really beautiful there, and it's important to me to do that. And I also have a fair amount of familiarity with how the government in the town works and which committees go to what. And Andrew is also an advisory, otherwise known as the Finance Committee in other towns. So he also has a fair amount of experience about grants and the amount of paperwork on and Massachusetts laws in terms of what you can do and what you can't do. So we have, I think I have a fair amount of trips around the block as far as town government is concerned. That's one of the main things I think I bring to the committee.
Well, Marguerite, do you also want to speak a little bit about your academic work with
Oh,
regarding
yes.
months?
For most of my life, I've been a writer and also a college professional writing teacher in a variety of places. I taught in New York for a while in Manhattan, and I also taught at Fitchburg State here for about 15 years. And one of the books that I edited that actually was very useful, I think, in terms of what we're doing here was a book called Ninowak the People by a guy named Steve Johnson. I think it came out in '95, and it was a very detailed study of the local native people, tribal situation around here before the colonists came. And that book needed a great deal of close editing, so I really had to deep dive into what was going on there, and I think I learned a lot. And that was mostly the settlements along the Nashua and the Concord rivers, or what we now call the Concord River. Anyway, so end of transmission.
Okay. Dan, do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background and interest?
I teach Latin and history at Fay. This is year 16, being a town resident in Southborough. Previously, was born and raised in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Served as a ward moderator and ward selectman there. I think my interests in this lie both in the history and the archaeological piece, especially considering the entire shift now that we're seeing with curriculums, focusing on those who are underrepresented or not represented. My curiosity is really kind of the I think we can get into it later, but I think my curiosity is really what's under the ground, and the due diligence that we have to find out what, if anything, right? It can no longer be anecdotal, right? We have to figure out what's under there. And if there's nothing, there's nothing. And if there's something, that's even more important. And that then changes the scope of the entire project, right? For me, I think the ground determines the project, not the project, the ground. If there's nothing there versus there's something there, I think those are those big questions. And I think, so that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Okay. Grant, do you want to tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. My name is Grant Farrington. I'm been a resident in Southborough my entire life. Recent graduated with my master's in 2020 in American government, and then in 2019 graduated double majored in history and government. And I think that this space is so central to the downtown area, and I have a desire to see it kind of become the best that it can be. And I know there's been a lot of ideas for what the final, I guess, transformation of the space should turn into, and I look forward to kind of working through those different ideas with you all. So yeah.
And then there was one. Hi, I'm James Nichols Worley. I believe I've been described as a current student at St. Mark's. which I am, it's true, but I like to think of myself also as a student of history. And honestly, there's not a lot I want to say about myself, but just that very wise piece of information that was endowed on me in the past year or so is about monuments and the work of monuments in our society. Is that a monument can tell you as much about what it's dedicated to as the people who put it there, which I think is incredibly important for our work.
Okay.
James, do you go by James or Jim?
James, you can call me James.
Okay, good, thanks.
So in terms of the charge calls for us to have a chair, vice chair, and a secretary. So for the secretary, that's important because we need to keep minutes of our meetings and to at each meeting approve the minutes and then post them publicly. So first, in terms of chair and vice chair, I think that it's important for our chair to have some familiarity with running town meetings and things like that. And so I would like to suggest, I think Marguerite, you would be a good candidate for chair, because I know you've been on the library board of trustees for quite a while, and I have a great deal of respect for you. I think you would do a good job. I wanted to just throw that out there. Does anyone?
I'm willing to do it if it's okay with everybody. As library chair, I have a very hands-off method of being the chair, so I can only say that as my sales pitch. I'm happy to chair this if it's okay with everybody.
So then the chair is.
You're a selectman, so you really shouldn't be chair. Is that otherwise you'd be chair?
I will throw my hat in the ring for vice chair, and I think here's the tension I kind of face. Right, is this is a working group that's appointed by the select board to help provide input to the select board on the future of the space there. Right now, because I'm in the position of being on a working group, which helps to provide a recommendation to the board that I'm on. Because I'd become involved enough in this that I wanted to be helpful to the working group in working with the select board and the DPW and ideas for funding mechanisms and things like that. So that's why the way I've kind of balanced this is I think it's better if I'm not the chair, but I work with you to be an active vice chair.
How does everybody else feel about that? I mean,
of course. Go ahead, Grant.
Oh no, I think that's a great idea, and I would support the Andrew's recommendation.
Yeah,
As well.
Agreed.
Okay, and James, what do you think?
Yes, I support it as well.
All right, that sounds like a plan. Do we need to vote, Andrew?
Sure, let's do it, and then I guess after we do this vote, then you'll be the chair that calls on people and keeps track of these votes. I move that Marguerite Landry be appointed chair of the St. Mark's Street Park Working Group.
I second the motion.
All those in, I guess we need to do a roll call vote since it's a Zoom meeting. So, Mr. Blanchard?
Yes.
Mr. Farrington?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols Worley?
Aye.
And Miss Landry?
I'll abstain because it seems a little cooler to just not vote for yourself. I don't know.
Okay, so and I'll vote aye. So that's 4 0-1. I made the motion. And Dan seconded.
No,
I second the motion.
James seconded.
Okay, Grant seconded.
No, Grant.
Oh, James did.
James, sorry. Okay. Okay, and then I would move if someone would.
I move to nominate Andrew Dennington as vice chair.
Okay.
Second.
So I guess Marguerite, you now.
Okay, so I'll call the vote. Mr. Blanchard.
Yes.
Do I have it alphabetically right? Mr. Dennington.
I'll abstain.
Okay, Mr. Farrington.
Aye.
Ms. Landry, aye, and Mr. Nicholas Worley.
Aye.
All right, so it carries 4 ayes and 1 abstention. And now we need a secretary, which is actually a very fraught role.
Marguerite, that doesn't sound like a very.
No,
salesman.
it's terrible. It's usually, it's the job that everyone thinks like, why me? Why me?
I, for one, am a big fan of meeting minutes.
Oh my
looks like we got a
God.
volunteer.
Best thing I've ever heard. Okay.
I better get out a pen and paper.
Yes, I do. Do I hear a motion to elect?
I move that we appoint James Nicholas Worley as the secretary.
Oh, beautiful. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, that was Grant. And let's see, Mr. Blanchard.
Yes.
Mr. Dennington.
Aye.
Mr. Farrington.
Aye.
Ms. Landry, aye. Who did I leave out? Oh, Mr. Nicholas Worley.
Abstain.
All right. Looks like 4 in favor, 1 abstention. You're on. Thank you so much. You'll learn so much. It's lovely. And if anything you need to know about filing the minutes with Jim Hegarty, just ask me, because I've done it before. It has to be in, oh, the other part is, are we doing agendas, Andrew?
Yep.
Okay, so
Yeah,
agendas
I
have
can
to
help
be
you.
in. Yeah, okay, we can just
I
talk
guess
about
as the
that
chair, you will
offline.
be the agenda signer, but I can
Okay.
help you with preparing the agendas for each meeting.
All right, okay. And what I usually like to do is about a week before the meeting, send around an email to everybody and say, do you have any items for the agenda? And then it has to be posted 48 business hours before the townhouse closes, which is always tricky because there's a holiday usually tucked in
Yes.
there somewhere, which has sunk many ships. So I will probably be sending around an email asking for agenda items and then telling you what Andrew and I have decided would be good agenda items as well. So
I also want to let everyone know that we have an attendee, Kevin Miller of the Historical Commission, who I let him know about the date and time of our meeting. He's also one of the attendees, so
good.
just want to let everyone know there.
Good. All right, so moving forward. Guess if I could find the agenda. Andrew, you've got it in front of you. Why don't you finish this? Why don't you finish sharing while I?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the agenda we just had, because I thought that the main purpose here was just to be kind of organizational, so we can kind of start to get going.
My first question would be, our charge is until April. Is
Yep.
that going to be something that we feel we can do?
Okay. Well, we put together the charge in December, and that's one of the things we wrestled with. And, we said we'll aim to have a recommendation by April. Now, I kind of generally think like the way the kind of rhythm of, business works, that it would be good if we had some idea, we were at in like a more concrete place before town meeting. The board did vote, the select board voted last night to set the date of the town meeting as it's the first week of May. And this reflects that Dan, James, I don't know if you, I know Grant has attended town meeting a lot, but I don't know if you've been to town meeting. But, you know, we had a fixed date in March, and then because of COVID, everything has kind of gone crazy. So we've just been, there's always been concerns about should be indoors, outdoors. So that's, this year it will be, I want to say it's May 4th, and then if possible, spill over into May 5th. And it's going to be at Algonquin, which is a little bit odd because it's in Algonquin's in Northborough, of course, but there was a recent rule change. Jim Hegarty was very clairvoyant in thinking that the situation might happen. So to get us a more socially distant space, this year it's actually going to be in Algonquin. But I think the thinking behind that was we want to move, you know, relatively quickly, but it's not like a hard set deadline. And, you know, there was a lot of thought given into, you know, preparing the charge of the working group, which is that if you look at the plans, right, there was a process that began all the way back in at least January 2021, where the plans were drafted and the Open Space Commission and Historical Select Board, and part of this is actually before the time that I joined the Select Board, were consulted, and this grant proposal was prepared. There was a bid out to put together this project. It's actually also a piece of other work that's going on Newton Street and Main Street. So it's kind of already moving, right? And originally, that circular space was intended to be a playground, but then there were a lot of different moving parts, including one of the ideas was that because at the last town meeting, there was a placeholder on the warrant for selling the South Union School. And that would mean eliminating that playground on that side of town would go away. So the playground, the circular space was originally thought of to be a playground, okay? Then the board made the decision that we wouldn't need another playground there, plus there's another one right behind townhouse. So that's the space, that's the only space in these plans right now, which is really kind of unfilled. And, you know, I know this is starting to get into, you know, the Dan's point here.
I just don't understand how was any of this filed with the archaeologist, state archaeologist?
No, none of it. It was all, that was part of the problem.
That's the problem, right? When you have this construction taking place near the cemetery, right? A colonial cemetery that's now closed, right? No one's being buried there anymore. And in proximity to the Southborough Library, which in itself is becoming a historical monument, and right, as a public library, one of the oldest in the country. But like, that's the due diligence that needed to have taken place.
The first that I heard about this, Dan, was that I saw that the trees were cut down behind the library. And this grant had been applied for by the Department of Public Works more than a year previous.
Right, but so if the town...
So the messaging was crappy.
Well, but so I guess my point is what the process, right? You put a backhoe into the ground pretty much anywhere in Southborough, there should be some sort of trigger of, right, what's going on with the state archaeologist, right? If you've got that, I mean, I think kind of like that's the responsibility of the town, which I think is default to
yes, I couldn't agree with you more.
To pay for the state archaeologist to come out.
Right.
I mean, I understand that the project is in motion and that we are due until, But if there are unmarked graves, it's our responsibility. We have to mark them.
Yes. So there are a number of pieces here. One is the communication to most of the town, including the library, was not very forthcoming from the Department of Public Works piece, Karen. The other thing is that there was some concern expressed, but it somehow never made it to the public forum that I was any part of. The third part is, if we're going to do a ground radar survey, which sounds like something that in an ideal universe would be very good to do, and Dan, maybe you know about that from Portsmouth, it's going to take a couple of years to get it done. So I'm seeing this is something that we really need to this is something that we really need to talk about. The DPW has said, as I understand it, they have already spent all the money of the grant, and that there is no ticking time bomb waiting for us to hurry up and do something with that piece of land. So that part of it is kind of off the table as far as feeling pressure, like, oh my God, we have to do something by the 1st of June. But I feel that rather tragically, there has not been a ground radar study done of that piece of land. And even if we recommend that it be done, isn't to say that the town meeting would be happy to have it done. And also the warrant for the town meeting is closed or closing soon, so that funds can't be done for that. So realistically, as far as getting ground radar, it's going to be well nigh impossible to do that within the foreseeable future. Would the town want to pay for it? Would somebody want to write a grant to have the state pay for it? That's going to take a couple of years. I don't think that that can be reasonably done at this point. I'd love to be wrong.
If I could just jump in here. Oh, sorry.
Google grant.
Oh, great. Thanks. Yeah, just I had attended a few of the Southborough Historical Commission meetings, and I believe there's a lot of talk about potential for ground penetrating radar in the last few meetings. And one thing that the chair, Michael Weishan, had said was that because I guess the prep work or whatever, the grading had already begun, and the ground had been disturbed, that could potentially limit the feasibility of moving forward with that. And that I believe that they had said that for whatever reason the radar is not effective if the ground has been disturbed. So I think that's something that warrants looking into further to see if there's still the potential to do that, or whether that window is unfortunately passed.
Other thoughts?
I just want to add that this is just fascinating to me, that the town has received a grant, from my understanding from the plans that I've seen, a grant for a history walk that is now not being done. All of the money for that grant has been spent. There's concerns over the legality of whether this park is legal without the approval of town meeting. There's, of course, massive concern over potential human remains in the site, and concern over the shared ownership of what is going to be the parcel that this park is on between St. Mark's School and the town. This whole thing just comes together as something of a snafu. And I'm wondering, for example, if, under some miraculous circumstances, the state's historical society comes in and says that the town cannot develop a park here, then the charge of this working group would be null. We would be recommending, a recommendation for a park that the town can't build. So I think we need to be cautious going forward.
Yeah, so if I can speak to some of the issues raised here, because I have a little background on it. First, I have a copy of the grant here. The grant was not only for a park, but it was also for sidewalks and pedestrian connections So I don't think it's entirely accurate to say the grant was just for a park. So also the original deadline for the grant was back in May. And because it was bid together with some other projects, and it was financially better for the town to then rebid it as part of another bigger project, that the DPW got several extensions, and it just got to the point where we needed to do something to make some progress on this. And my understanding is that the 290 was used to put in the infrastructure for the park. Okay. But then the rest of the money for the work on the park going forward would come from town money, from roadway maintenance money. So I think that the kind of constraints are that we have to build a park, or else we're at risk of returning the $290,000. And there was a process that, as I said, started early on, as early as January of last year, where it seemed like everyone was on board with collaborating on a grant proposal for the park. So that's why I'm committed to working to try to maintain the park. My own view is that I don't know that archaeological work would ever really give a definitive verdict on whether there were burials in this area 350 or 400 years ago. I read there was an article in the Boston Globe 10 or 15 years ago where there was a discussion about the Southborough Historical Society's ground radar work back in like 2005. And one of the things that it did suggest that there are unmarked burials outside the boundaries of the stone walls. But that what you would find is not that there are human remains or bones, but you would find soil changes. Okay. So I guess the point that I'm driving at is that, again, I am not an expert in this area, but what the impression I have is that archaeological work, it would take a lot of time, but it would never definitively prove one way or the other whether there were human remains there, and it wouldn't prove whether they were Native American or colonial. So my thinking was that you could just assume that there were burials in the area. So what do you do next? I mean, that's one of the reasons why there was kind of the genesis for the working group. I know a lot of we have a lot of questions about kind of like things that happened in the past. I'm more thinking of how to work productively going forward. And that's why, again, what I'm interested in helping the group do is fulfill the charge of the working group is to think about a way to work within the existing plan and have some type of a monument or physical recognition to the Native American presence in the town. Kevin Miller is in the audience, and
could I just, does he want to, does he have his hand raised? Does he want to talk? Does Kevin want to talk?
It looks like he does have his hand raised. Yes.
Yeah. You want me to bring him over?
Public comment?
Okay, so this is another thing we have to decide. There's two ways to do it. In a Southborough meeting, in a Zoom meeting, we can hold all the comment until the end, which some boards do, or we can have the comment come in as the hands are raised during the meetings. So which would everyone prefer to do?
I mean, he's the only attendee, so
I know, but we never know. We may have 17 or 18 some nights. That would be very exciting.
yep.
Is this on a night by night basis?
No, usually the board will make a decision whether they want all the comment at the end or whether they want, I think the Board of Selectmen has all the comment at the end. Am I right?
Yeah, the way that the select board works is there's public, kind of just open public comment at
Mhm.
the beginning and then a reserved spot for open public comment at the end.
Yeah.
But our agendas are, incredibly long.
Hours. I know.
Yeah.
That's why I thought it's almost better, in my opinion, to have someone come in while the subject is being discussed so that we don't have to wait until the total end of the meeting where everyone's forgotten what we were talking about.
Yeah.
So I kind of am for public comment coming in whenever anybody raises their hand.
I agree. And, if we suddenly have an influx of attendees and everyone's raising their hand, then we can revisit it in the future.
Right. Maybe we could revisit it. But,
I guess the only thing I would say, I think the recommendation for, right, so okay, so we have the ball is moving, right? How do we proceed? When we talk about what the recommendations are by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, it's actually a systematic, so it's in paragraph 5, a program of systematic soil stripping monitored by a professional archaeologist. So this is not ground radar. This is them saying we want an archaeologist on site to dig.
Dan,
but even before we can build, even before we begin the park, we also need to actually find out where those unmarked graves are and mark them, so that is not disturbed. Right.
We do know that the road that has been graded over there is going right over what is probably grades, right?
So, right, it says a written cemetery avoidance and protection plan could also be developed and implemented.
But Marguerite, I think we don't know that.
But that's right. We don't know what we don't know, right?
Right. So, that road is what Michael had told me was that he was under the impression that the native graves were probably outside of the colonial one and to the north where the trees were, and the trees prevented the ground penetrating radar working before because there was too much vegetation. But my sense of it is, before I get totally crazy on the subject of what is where, there was a Nipmuc village there. They lived there. They lived here. They used that stream, which has been flooding the library religiously. They were here. They need to be marked as being here. They lived here, they died here, they hunted here. We need to do something to show they were here. Whether it's a grave or a village, to me, it's all the same.
I just want to make one last point.
Opinion. What?
Before I do think we have a very member of the public waiting very patiently, as I wanted to clarify a point Andrew made. Andrew, you said something about uncertainty of whether there are literal human remains or just soil. I think you said something about working under an assumption. Did you say we should work under the assumption, under the ethos that there is remains there, or that there's not?
Well, if I can jump in for 2 seconds, because I talked to Michael Weisand about this. After 200 years in our soil, it's so acid that the bones are gone, but a shift in the soil chemistry remains from the calcium and other minerals in the bones. So what you would see is that you would see shifts in the soil chemistry, but not the actual bones. I think I have that right.
So James, to answer your question, that you would assume yes.
Okay. In that case, if that's the assumption we're working under, then would that not apply? Because state law, when it comes to law, there is no, we don't have a definitive answer. When it comes to the law, especially among the law regarding burial sites, wouldn't the assumption we make going into this be very important? Even if we're assuming that there are, I'm using scare quotes here, remains, that would be potentially in conflict with state law if we assume that and then go ahead anyways. Would that not?
How would it be in conflict? I'm sorry, I'm not following.
I didn't, so I had a little bit of a different interpretation of the letter from the State Historical Commission. I didn't see it as requiring there was any required action. Okay, there was a recommendation. Now, one thing, we haven't actually reached out to speak to this person. I know that there was by the way, there was also, we also haven't reached out to anyone from the Nipmuc tribe recently, or I think that there's been, I think that, I don't know if you have heard anything or if Kevin has heard anything. Should we bring him over?
Why don't we?
Thank you for joining us, Kevin.
Hey, working group. Thanks for having me. And I didn't really plan or expect or really want to talk, but since you seemed to be asking, I just put my hand up, and I'm happy to help out in any way I can. I will say, because it might help some of the things that you've touched on. The Historical Commission did send a letter dated February 7th, so about a week ago, and it was actually transmitted a couple days later. That February 7th was the date that we approved it in an open meeting, and it was transmitted subsequently, and it was addressed to officials at St. Mark's, and I did send also a copy, but at that point, of course, you folks hadn't met yet. So
yeah, but that's in our packet. We have read it. It's in our packet.
So you've seen it. Okay, so I just want to make sure that it had kind of, I sent it to Andrew and to Margarita. Those are the only emails I had, because I was charged with sending it out. And so if you've read it, you know what our position is, and it simply, we had directed the ask towards St. Mark's as the property owners, with the feeling that it was very difficult or problematic to go forward on a park or the project overall without first ascertaining what was beneath the ground, and we were guided by the letter that we attached that came from the executive director of the Massachusetts Historical Commission. Of course, that's a professionally staffed office, and Brona Simon is both the executive director and the state archaeologist. And Andrew is right that she cited some statutes in her letter, but she made recommendations, and the recommendation was intensive locational archaeological survey and soil stripping and whatnot, because it is correct that given the state of the ground and the disturbance that's been undertaken already, that you can't ground radar survey it. You'd have to actually have somebody digging there. The Ms. Simon from the MHC had recommended back in November that be undertaken. And, our position as a commission is simply that we take her as the expert she is, and we're recommending to St. Mark's that they take the time and the care and, expend the necessary funds to do that kind of investigation to clear the field. And as we had indicated that we hoped, sort of best case scenario is nothing is found, and then everybody can move forward in good faith, or if something is found, that it's dealt with, with the necessary respect and sensitivity that such findings would merit. So, our position was not intended to sort of obstruct at all progress on a park and progress on the project overall, but to make sure that we treat the Native American presence or the possible Native American presence with the sensitivity and again, the respect it would, clearly deserve. And, there's an interesting question that Andrew brings up about the amount of time that has gone by, centuries, and what is likely to be there. And it kind of raises, in my mind, an interesting philosophical question about how long is sacred ground sacred? And I guess I would respectfully argue forever, as long as there's an awareness of it. And so, again, my personal view on the matter is I would like to see St. Mark's, with all due respect, take the bull by the horns and investigate. And I understand that you folks are pressed for time, that the town is pressed for time, that St. Mark's is pressed for time, that everybody kind of wants to get on with it and make progress. And I appreciate that and support the impulse. I guess we felt that our, by the very nature of our existence as a historical commission, that it was our responsibility as a commission to make the recommendation and make the caution to the people who will ultimately decide. And then having made that recommendation, to step back and say, okay, that's what we recommend, and we hope you'll follow through. We don't have any power beyond that in the matter, only the power to raise a voice and to indicate that it's done with a sense of responsibility and conscience, and that we're trying to help.
Kevin, have you heard anything back from St. Mark's since the letter was sent?
No, we have not. And, it's only been about a week. And
yep, it's been 8 days. Right.
I understand that it's a lot for them to process and a lot for people to think about, and it's hard. And, it's a difficult position that everybody finds themselves in. And so, I expect it will take some time. We did also transmit a copy of the letter to the chief of Nipmuc Nation, and we
Chief Holly, right? Yeah,
Chief Holly. And we haven't heard back yet from her as well. But again, I think these things take some time, and I think that's. I mean, I am not insensible to the fact that you're under pressure to move along. So I offer my congratulations to the working group as a group for getting together, and I wish you all the best and great progress. And if there's any way that I can personally help, or to the degree that as vice chair, I'm just speaking with the sense of the intention of the historical commission. We want to help, and we want you guys to do good work. Again, we just personally think that the matter of what's under that ground, or how the soil has been forever changed, possibly by the presence of these unmarked burials, should be investigated. And I regret if that holds anybody up for even 5 minutes, but it feels to me like the right thing to do.
Well, Kevin, first of all, thank you. I thought it was a fine letter, and it also underlines to me that the owners of this land are St. Mark's.
Right.
And,
well, our thought was, and that obviously it would be beneficial to the town. We think it would be beneficial to St. Mark's, to everybody that's concerned, for the property owner to step forward and take that step. And so it's not, the intention, for instance, our letter would not burden the town in any way, except, at least not financially, because we're asking the owners of the property, to pay the money basically to do the survey.
Now, if I understand correctly, and maybe this is a question for you, Andrew, if a piece of property that has, I don't know what, 6 burial mounds and a I don't know what on it is private property, the owner of that property can do whatever he or she wants with those things, correct? Or no?
Yes, but in terms of what the law requires for unmarked burials, I just before this meeting, I went through the letter from the State Historical Commission. I briefly looked at some of the statutes in there. Okay, how I interpret it is that there's in the part of the law where it regulates like a medical examiner. Okay, there's a section which deals with unmarked human remains. It's got 3 sections, and the first 2 of them don't have anything to do with really ancient remains. They basically say if you're digging and you discover unmarked human remains, you have to immediately notify the chief medical examiner. Okay, who then would do an autopsy, etc. Okay, so that doesn't apply here, right? If there are remains suspected of being 100 years old or more, then the person should notify the state archaeologist. So I'm putting here, an asterisk, because as an attorney, I'm reading, from a statute that I've never really had any familiarity with. So that's what it looks like it says. That's another thing. I could be trying to get some more guidance from town council about how, the statute applies here. But sorry, I felt like I was getting a little off topic. What was your?
No, I guess the question
Okay.
was if it doesn't matter what it is, if it's on private property, the owner of the private property can do what they want with it.
Yeah. So
no, they can't.
Is that wrong? Good. I'm glad I'm wrong.
Can't.
Okay.
No, because so in your example, right, in similar issues, right, if an abandoned graveyard is now part of a person's property, they cannot touch that graveyard. Right. So, right, because the graveyard itself, if it's marked with tombstones, right, and a boundary, or even without a boundary, right, that area is protected by law. But the difference here with the unmarked graves, I think, is going to be if in the process we discover. Right, so we have all of this anecdotal evidence, we have some ground radar which suggests possibility, but we don't have the knowledge, right? But this is what happened in Portsmouth, right, where they're doing road repairs and then they uncover the African American burial ground, right? And so now all of a sudden you're not just finding 1 or 2 or 3 coffins, you're finding dozens. Right, which then immediately stops the entire project. Right, now, unfortunately, right, the reason why they're giving recommendations is because they don't, my understanding with the commission is they don't have the power to say, you have to do this. Right, and so this is the other problem that we have where, right, the involving the Nipmucs is incredibly important. But unfortunately, right, tribes have very little political authority.
Yeah.
Right. And so really what we have is we can pursue the project. We can do this. The question then is about ethics.
The project meaning building the park on top of it.
I mean, we can go right ahead and say we're going to build the project.
Right.
It's a matter of ethics. Right. There's the right.
I know where I stand on that. I absolutely would be appalled.
Right. But I think, and I don't know if this is the scope of our commission. Our commission is designed specifically to, okay, what do we do now?
Yes.
Right? Yep. And I frankly don't think that a monument is good enough. A monument is not going to solve the problem.
No.
That's kind of where we're at least for me, Andrew, is I'm struggling with the practicality of the park, the necessity of the park, especially when you look at drainage, especially when you want to look at road intersections, road safety, all of those kinds of specifics. Everything, all of the other aspects outside of the park itself are necessary, absolutely. But the park is part of that. It can't be divorced from it. But I think this is kind of where, at least from where I am,
Well, technically, we as a town board don't have the power even to call the state in, do we, to do a
No.
dig there because it's St. Mark's land.
But you know, and that's a much larger problem.
So it really is St. Mark's call.
Right. We can't. But so again, this is the other piece to this, is that you think about all of the construction that's been happening in Southborough, and none of that is being vetted anything through an archaeological office. Right. So maybe that's kind of where.
Well, Dan, are you talking there about public construction or private construction?
Both.
Both of the above.
Yeah.
They've even shredded the walls there, which are quote, quote, historic. Those are gone. But so technically it looks to me as if the issue on doing an archaeological study rests with St. Mark's School and their board. And is it appropriate for us to sort of say, approach them and
So when I drafted the charge for this working group,
yes. Yep.
you'll see we encourage the working group to invite a representative of the St. Mark's School and a representative of the DPW to participate as non-voting members.
Mhm.
So that would be anticipating that things like this would come up.
Yep.
That we would have someone to work with. And the reason why participation would be as non-voting members is because I don't know of working groups where people who aren't Southborough residents are voting on these things. So kind of in terms of where all this discussion is going. So the genesis of the working group was of a working group appointed by the select board with a particular charge. Okay. It sounds like what we're hearing is discussion about concerns about moving forward with the current scope of the charge in light of the unresolved questions about potential for unmarked burials and what we could or should do about that. Is that kind of a...
Well, I think also that this working group has a certain charge, and that's what the selectmen charged us with. However, there is also the larger issue of ethically, morally, and in terms of what the rest of the townspeople, what the rest of the voters in town would want for it, is like, do we have a responsibility as the working group to look wider than the charge if in good conscience we look at this and say there are a lot more moving parts here than simply a monument? I put that to you, Andrew, because I don't really know the answer to that.
Well, Andrew, were you suggesting altering the charge in some way? I'm not sure exactly how that works. Is that what you were?
The charge is just to do a monument.
Yes.
The charge is just to create a monument.
Well, it says to generate, I'm quoting from the charge here, to generate a recommendation regarding what should fill the circular space in the center of the park.
Yeah,
yes.
That's a monument.
Because it was originally intended as a playground, and now they're and after the playground was moved, that there was no plan for that. So
it's a small circle in the middle of the design,
yep.
which we are charged with filling. However, It
Well-
seems to have expanded a bit.
That's the thing, is it's a recommendation of what should fill it, but that doesn't necessarily mean we would say anything. If I'm speaking hypothetically, we determine that we shouldn't ethically go forward with this, if those circumstances came to be, if we said we should not ethically, even if legally, but not ethically go forward with this, the letter of the charge, we could say nothing should be there.
But all the walkways will still go in. That's the part of it.
That is
The
true.
walkways all around will go in, the bulldozing will continue, the paving will continue. And that won't, I don't think that's what, I think,
Yeah.
Never mind, go ahead. Sorry.
So Marguerite, when you're talking about like bulldozing, okay, I think most of the most significant work has already happened, and here's where it would be helpful to have Bill, who's been appointed to the committee, participate, because
Yes.
when the plans were engineered, of the two things that I understand that you really gotta to drive the engineering are, one, drainage calculations, and then two, ADA compliance. So I anticipate that he'll feel strongly about ensuring that the park remains ADA compliant, and that's one of the things which has driven more of impervious surfaces rather than pervious surfaces.
Andrew, is Southborough one historic district, or are there historic districts within Southborough?
I don't think there are
Maybe
any.
a Kevin question.
Yeah, I don't think there are any historic districts, like in the sense of Boston or.
Right, because I think,
Yeah.
right, when you look at, because go ahead, Kevin, sorry.
Oh, sorry. We do have a brand new, just recognized by the National Register of Historic Places, downtown historic district, which actually encompasses a significant portion of Main Street, parts of Lattisquama, parts of Middle Road, parts of School, and does encompass the old burial ground. That was just recognized by the National Register in the last month, at the end of a very long process.
You know, and this is not, but I would certainly, one of the things that we can get around private, so one of the things that was very common in Portsmouth is, how do you deal with people who have private property, is you prevent them from doing certain things by marking where the historic district is. So in certain specific districts, geographically, only certain work can be done, and then
Yeah, I don't think we have that type of historic district.
right, but that's you know, that's a whole nother thing for a headache.
By the way, Jay, I know I think
bad.
Did
Yep.
those-
We lost him.
okay, so that's good, so that I didn't want him to
go
be working
crazy.
past 8 o'clock, where just to set us up where it looks like
So
he's done what he needed to do.
could we revisit the idea of our charge again, since that seems to be something that we really
Okay.
need to.
Yeah, here's the
ponder
what
it.
I was going to say. How can I be helpful here? Okay, so again, the select board, I think everyone was very impressed with all of you and saw the value that that you each could bring to this. And I mean, one of the things I could do is I could report back to the select board at the next meeting about some of the concerns expressed here. Are you guys saying you don't want to work within the current charge until there's some, you first want to think about what can be done to examine the possible presence of unmarked burials there?
Well,
No.
yeah, I mean, for me, it's.
See, I don't, but
No,
Yeah.
I'm not there. I feel that it's not town property. It behooves the school to make a decision about that. But I feel like I don't know, it's complicated to me. I don't simply want to put up, a small bronze statue in the middle of the circle which I think would be a terrible, terrible idea. I think that the whole piece needs to be looked at. And as newly elected chair, I'd like to actually ask everyone on this committee to say what they thought. But I think that waiting to do ground excavation is going to make it so that the original plan goes forward and the whole thing just gets paved over and everybody forgets about it. I think it would be asking for too much. So I'm of the mind that simply dealing with the center circle is too small a charge, but I'm also of the mind that asking for major archaeological, whatever it is, excavations there is also too big, and it's going to make nothing happen that we want to have happen. So that's where I am. And James, I'd love to hear from you on that, and also Dan, and also Grant.
Thank you, Marguerite. Well, I guess to start, I would like to reiterate the snafu that this is that I'm just on the topic that this is St. Mark's land, it should be their responsibility. I've read over the letter from the Historical Commission to St. Mark's School. I am, of course, a student there. I see at least half of these people on a daily basis. I think for all the on and off antagonism that between the town and the school, that now we are so willing to divulge responsibility to them when we are still, paying for work to be done on the land. I think it's sort of like wanting to have your cake and eat it too. I just think there's a lot that we need to do that is not done yet before we could consider a recommendation regarding what should fill the space. So that's where I am on the matter. I think, at least for our next meeting, we should highly, highly consider that recommendation from the select board of bringing in a representative from St. Mark's School.
James, what do you mean by that? Bringing in a representative to talk to the town, talk to this working group, or?
Well, that is what the select board recommended. Let me find the language.
I think that was supposed to be you.
That was.
Yeah, see, that
was you, and that was Dan.
Okay.
Well, actually, I thought that was talking about ad hoc non-voting members as
non-voting.
Okay.
Okay. So James, it does hurt my feelings a little bit when you refer to the document I drafted, use some air quotes with it, but just teasing.
We need a thick skin to function in this town. We do.
No, and as a selectman, you do need thick skin. But
I mean,
the good part of what I like what you said is that you see these people on a daily basis, so you can help us solve. I think the term that you used was
snafu.
You can help us solve the snafu, and part of what I see my role is to help solve these types of things, right? And that's why we appointed everyone here to help us work through this. So, look, are you suggesting that we should invite one of the, like, again, I'm sorry, Marguerite, I feel like I'm intruding on.
No, you're the vice chair. I'm on the mere chair. So
okay. What is the next step? Do you think the next step is to have one of the folks that received this letter come in?
Yes, I do believe that. And I do just want to add a quick comment to my earlier comment, is that more than anything, I would like to see a park here. I would like to see a park and a monument. And I like, if there's one thing I am against, it is government doing nothing. So I would like us to do something. I just want to make sure that we're not going into this head first, and then in 50 years when they write the town history, it won't be, and then the town made a grave mistake, is all I want to add.
Right? Yes.
No pun intended, no.
Yes.
So yes, I think of these people, just from what I know of their schedules, probably the head of school, Mr. John Warren, or
John
the
Davis.
Dr. Daves, I know, is also very busy. So then I think our best options would be looking into Mr. Kuklitz, the CFO, the Dean of Students, Mr. David Vacris, the head chaplain, Reverend Barbara Talcott, possibly the members from the trustees and the alumni committee, but they're of course not in town. The rest of these people are on campus in town.
Isn't there someone who is responsible for grounds?
Yes, there's a grounds crew.
But I would think community and equity affairs would be more like what we're talking about. Is Mr. Dave's really too busy to come?
I'll see if I can get through to him. I'll if that is what the board would like, I can reach out to his secretary.
What do you think? I mean, we are community and we are dealing with equity. What do you think?
I guess just to clarify, this would be to kind of sit in on to invite him to sit in on our next meeting, and what would his role be exactly? To run ideas?
Ask for a response to the historical commission's letter.
Oh, okay. Then I think that's
appropriate. I don't know.
That would be worthwhile. Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off. Is that I've Dr. Days does focus a lot more on the student side of things. Is that I think it would be worth it to bring in one of the members of the school who is more involved with the financial circumstances.
Right.
If, as the historical commission said, they're concerned and would recommend the school do something financially, then it'd be worthwhile to hear about someone with the authority to speak on the school's financial matters.
James, I think that sounds like a good idea.
All right. So, Mr. Kuklowitz, maybe? I'm just pulling the names out of the hat because I know John Warren vaguely from when my son went to St. Mark's, but I don't know anybody else on this list.
If it would be possible, more than one, just to broaden our net in case one can't make it or there's a conflict. But I don't know if we're interested in throwing too wide of a net.
Does it make sense for you to find out that person's, whoever is going to be the representative to, in terms of scheduling, like, should we, seems like Wednesday night is the night which works for us. Do you think, and I'm sorry, not remembering the name of the person you have in mind.
Mr. Rob Kuklitz.
Al Kuklitz?
Robert.
Rob, okay.
Kuklowitz, right.
Yeah.
He's
meet
the
with
Chief
us.
Financial and Operations Officer, it says here.
I mean, you could find out whether he's available generally on Wednesday nights, and then if he's got a meet, like, I know in terms of our next meeting, I am on vacation next week.
Oh, right. Is that something we should do now, is schedule our next meeting?
Yeah, let's think about that. Do you want to wait until you're back? I know you don't want to come zooming in from your vacation, although of course if you were truly dedicated you would do that immediately, right? It's like, you can't stay away. Do you want to put it out?
That's the you're saying zooming in from my vacation?
Yes, from your vacation. Never mind your family. Who cares?
Yeah, so that
right?
I
This
would
is
do
what
not
really
want to do
matters.
that. And one of the reasons I do not want to do that is actually the one of the last meetings where this was on the agenda was also one where I zoomed in from a vacation, and I don't want to do that. So
I don't blame you one
doesn't
bit.
want me to do that.
Reasonable.
I don't blame her.
No, I would not ask that of you. Do you want to put our next meeting out 2 weeks?
So
Works
we're
with
looking
me.
at March 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
That works for me, I think. Yeah.
All right, that sounds like it would be good. We have certainly opened a number of cans of worms this evening in a short period of time. This is really good. We have a lot of different moving parts to look at.
If you don't mind, I know that kind of before we went off on the St. Mark's discussion, we were talking about the potential for changing the charge, or having Andrew report back to the Board of Selectmen. Is that something that we want to discuss further tonight, or would you want to wait until the next meeting to decide that?
I think we should discuss it tonight, because if we do approach someone from St. Mark's to attend our meeting, we've already expended beyond our charge.
Okay.
Don't you think?
I'm not sure that's the case, because we did invite a member of St. Mark's to participate. So what you could do is listen to what the St. Mark's person had to say on March 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
I think the next select board meeting is going to be March 1st. So just see what the person said on the 2nd.
All right.
And then I think we have I could then, based on what Mr. Cook, sorry, not getting his name.
Kukless. I'm not
said,
sure on that pronunciation.
Then I have a more informed decision to report back to.
All right.
Okay, rather than, because what am I going to say at the meeting on March 1st, other than, unless we were to flesh out this entire charge discussion.
Then I would say stick with the current charge until we learn more.
I think that's probably the most productive way for it. But I'm just warning from a financial standpoint. I really worry, and I think Marguerite, you were maybe alluding to this, is full-blown redesigns of things where, again, for example, the Open Space Commission was pretty involved in helping to put together this original design. So I don't want you to have the impression that this original design about how there's going to be open native species gardens that the Open Space Commission wanted, that if you really want to open this up huge, it's going to have, first off, you need to go back to the select board and then see what they want to do. I don't know what the appetite would be there, and it's going to really kind of cause a lot of problems, all right, and that have fiscal implications. I understand it sounds like a lot of people have a serious concern that you want to have a better understanding of the burial issue, right? But hopefully we at least have a consensus that we want to build a park, and there should be some Native American theme or component to it. Is there a consensus at least about that?
Well, one of the reasons I loved the idea of Freddie Gillespie going in there with the native pollinators was this would have been the flowers and trees and shrubs that the Nipmucs would have had around them. That's what she is planting. And that's why I liked the idea of Freddie expanding it from the library ground into the park. It would be the same flora that was here 300, 400 years ago. And I thought that was a good thing to include. As far as the rest of the design of the park, it seemed to me to have too many pavers in it, but that was just me. So that's just where I am on it. Other voices?
I don't feel comfortable moving forward with the park. or with the charge as it is.
But do you feel comfortable with the concept of I mean, the town applied for and got a grant to do sidewalk improvements to improve connectivity and to support the construction of a park. So not doing a park probably results in returning $290,000 to the state, where there was already.
Yeah,
Oh, wait.
so I guess.
Andrew, on that, the $290,000 is being spent on land that belongs to St. Mark's, and a lot of people in Southborough are saying, why are we spending our grant on property that belongs to St. Mark's? So it's very complicated.
I guess for my, I'm sorry, Grant, go ahead.
Oh, no, so, yeah, I actually had watched I think it was the very early January advisory meeting in which DPW had Karen Galligan was before advisory, and they were talking about what was the $300,000 supposed to be used for, and was it used in its entirety? And it's called I believe shared streets or complete
Shared
street
spaces.
$300,000 shared street grant. And Karen Galligan, I believe, said that the money has already been spent on the road improvement or whatever, on the road itself, rather than, my understanding was that the 300,000 was for the history walk and other things related to the park. So I do think there's some questions there. I'm not, I don't even know if we even have that money to work with, going forward. It sounds like we don't, and I'm not really sure what happened there, because I just think there's some outstanding questions.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, Andrew, my concern is everybody did all of this hard work and they put in incredible amount of time and effort, but they didn't do the first thing that they were supposed to do. So you have a plan, you are executing a plan, but that first thing that probably should have done wasn't done. Now, I don't know how the town got involved with this parcel of property with St. Mark's. Is the monument going to be on town property, or is it going to be on St. Mark's property?
St. Mark's property.
St. Mark's property. It's all St. Mark's property.
Is there anything stopping the organization? I assume it's like some kind of nonprofit 401 something, from just giving the land to the town?
You mean St. Mark?
Yeah.
My understanding was that they signed a temporary licensing agreement to like swap.
So there was
there was a temporary licensing agreement. There was something wrong with it because it should have gone to town meeting before any bulldozing was done, and it did not go to town meeting. So that basically one of the problems that's happening in this area is that the easement is being granted, but the people of the town of Southborough are supposed to vote on every time a piece of town, town investment goes into land that they're paying for but doesn't belong to them. And it didn't go before town meeting, and it should have, and that was an error, I think, on the part of the DPW, and I'll probably get killed for saying this. But it's kind of fuzzy. And yes, that land belongs to St. Mark's. And yes, Southborough is spending a grant it has received to improve that land. And that is the park and the road, the new road that's been put in.
And my understanding is that the road cannot be completed until that is approved at town meeting, upcoming town meeting. Is that right?
I mean, the road is just going forward.
The road is done, right?
Yeah.
The road is a done deal.
So there's already drainage that's put in concrete.
Yeah,
where the relocated roadway is. So that's not changing. Okay.
No, I understand that. Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember what the site looked like before, but there was a pretty significant drainage issue with
it was a
huge
swamp.
puddle at this.
Yeah.
At this. So just in terms of next steps, because it's getting towards like
Is Kevin still with us? Yes, he
Yep.
is.
Not that
Kevin,
we want to force him to comment, but Kevin,
right.
if you
I'd
have
love to
anything.
hear from you if you can do it.
I don't have anything to add, really. I really appreciate your, this is a very smart group. And so I look forward to seeing what the next steps for you folks are. But again, if I can help, or if historical could help, again, I don't speak with any authority other than a sense that we would really like to help. So keep us posted.
We'll try our best to be in touch.
So Andrew, the road that is moving forward is the road that you referenced that will be paving over the site that needs to be inspected.
Yep.
I don't know.
No, because you said
the site that needs to be.
The road, right? The road that is going forward, where you said is going forward, right? The road is going to happen. They're going to build the road.
It's been graded already.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's been graded and it's been crushed stoned and it's got a sidewalk already. If you walk over there, you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately,
and it's right on top of what needs to be
so
done.
again, this does kind of go in, like there's some history to this. All the plan of the shift in the road was shown on plans like a long time ago. So this is not something that there's any it's not stopping. Okay, so again, Dan, just so you understand, I'm trying to be helpful here. Okay, I know you're asking a lot of good questions, but I hope you see where I'm coming from in this. All right, and again, I know you say there's something that should have happened at the beginning that didn't. I'm not sure I completely agree with you, but I recognize that again, my idea, or not my idea, but I thought where the board was we can balance this all with trying to use the park space in a way that is unique and recognizes Native American presence and history in the town. So, I mean, some of the things that I thought that the working group could do to, reach out to other groups that might have confronted other issues like this, instead of, the real focus on the, the archaeology of it and the bones. I think that there's a much bigger picture here, right? Rather than what's underneath. Not sure we really agree, but there's, we're just discussing it now, where you say that the ground drives what the park is rather than the park drives what the ground is. But James, look, I think that if St. Mark's, first off, how long would the process that you're talking about take? I have no idea. And if St. Mark's, which does own the land, and it's subject, there's an agreement subject to town meeting approval to swap easements, so that the town would have an easement to use the park, and St. Mark's would have an easement to use the other side of the town property.
A parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That sorry, I was losing my train of thought again here because it's getting late. Anyway, if St. Mark's was willing to fund some of the archaeological work that you're talking about, or some type of investigation, that helps a lot, right?
I suppose that when I do talk, and how do we propose to send an invitation for a representative from the school to discuss this financial aspect?
That should be me, I suppose, as the chair, not you as a member. That should be me as the chair.
I can deliver the letter in person if you'd like.
Or I can just email. I can just email. I'll email and I'll copy every other member of the working group. How's that?
Sounds great.
And just ask him. So, but here's the other.
But Marguerite, can I
Yep.
just ask a follow-up question? This is just an invitation to attend our next meeting.
Yes,
Not
absolutely.
an advocating anything or, okay.
No, but as I understand it, the cost of one of these surveys is around $20,000. Am I right?
I have no idea.
I'm not sure.
And probably it could be paid for by a grant, but that would take a lot of hours, a lot of days and hours of writing and blah 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 blah. And I'm not sure any of us has the stomach for that. Dan, I would like to talk to you offline, as they say, about what happened in Portsmouth. Would that be possible? Could I send you an email to set something up like that?
I mean, it's all public,
Okay.
and you can actually download what the process was, and you can go. I mean, it's all part of
All right.
the process of building a park. And really, it becomes like a historic marker, and then the dedication process that they had to go through.
I think my question for you, since you obviously care about this really a lot, would be if it were impossible to do a survey like that, what would your next best desire be for that piece of land?
I mean, right, as a historian, right, this is how things get destroyed.
Yep, I know.
Right.
Yep. Nobody's more upset about this than me. Trust me.
Well, and I guess for me, I look at this as a town-setting precedent.
Yep.
Right. You have, right, Fay School faculty member. Fay owns Doc Stone's house. Right. 1750, one of the oldest houses in Southborough, most continuously lived in.
Yep.
That's now privately owned by Fay.
Yep.
You will have invariably, right, this came up with the St. Mark's Church and the role of the clock tower, right? This is not a one and done issue. I think that there's going to be multiple issues in the future, right?
Well, that's very well said.
And so what we do as a group will be, I mean, if we're going to build a park, we'll build the park. It'll be a beautiful park. My daughters will go there and play. I think the educational piece will be lost. I think the opportunity. So, I mean, I think for me, if we could establish a clear connection, an archaeological connection, a historical connection, if we have some way to connect Grafton, Southborough to Grafton and Ashland, and what's going on over in Ashland, which is fantastic.
What is going on in Ashland?
It's a huge Nipmuc archaeological piece that they're doing there, right? So if we could figure out how Southborough connects into that, or even just as the close proximity of Grafton, right? I think we look at something much bigger, right? That's the educational piece that I'm speaking to. I don't think a monument is an educational piece, right? The Henry Knox monument is not the educational piece, right? But I do think there is a great opportunity to create something educational. I'm not sure what that looks like. I'm not sure if that's going to fit within the confines of the circle.
Can you please send me, or I don't actually see a problem in just, I'm interested in the, what are you talking about in Ashland, just because I'm not familiar with it.
Let me see if I can pull it up.
Where in Ashland? Is it on town property, private property?
And maybe if you could send it to us afterwards, because
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Or
Grafton still has a reservation. It's little, but it's still there.
Yeah, that's in Grafton. Yeah, I think this is, so when Mogunkakweg, Place of Great Trees, was the last of the original 7 Christian Indian communities,
The
which is
Praying
now
Indian Village.
Ashland, Massachusetts. And this is the Fisk Center for Archaeological Research.
That'd be great.
And then
I can, in deference to our open meeting law, can I send this link in the chat?
yeah, let me see if I can pull.
Sure.
Thank you. There you go.
The other thing that occurs to me while we're talking is that at no point during this meeting have we discussed what the Nipmucks would like. They may not care about archaeology. They may want something else instead. We have not thought about that, and
Well,
I think that's pretty major.
I think, I know, I believe I tried to mention this when the board was initially approving members for this, is that in all circumstances, is that they're going to be very busy, in that us as considering a park, is that we might need to be flexible with what we consider our timetable for that. Is that it would be not just unrealistic, but I think a bit unfair to be really demanding and asking for assistance. But I do think, I know a lot of these letters from the Historic Commission have also been sent to the current chief of the Nipmuc tribe. But if we would like to reach out to them directly from this working group to come attend our next meeting as well,
I think
we
that'd
should
be
look into that.
fantastic. I think that's, I mean, they may say, go away and leave us alone, don't bother us, or they may say, yes, we'll get back to you in a while, or what, but I think it would be, to me, not such a great thing to just plow ahead without consulting immediately, or at least reaching out and saying, please help us out here.
I think we're all a little tired.
Yes,
I think we've been going on now for almost an hour and 40 minutes.
Yes.
Okay, well, I was in a meeting until about 10:16 or 10:30 last
Oh
night.
my God. That's no way to live.
So this is nothing.
Okay.
Those are my Tuesday nights when I'm
Nothing.
on duty, right?
Yeah.
I work from 7:40 and then I do put to bed until 10:30.
By the way, I'm very glad, Dan, that during that meeting I texted you. You let me know about that time constraint you had, so we could get you in, and then that helped all of you guys, because then it advanced all of you, so you didn't need to wait until listen to the rest of our boring meeting before you.
No, I mean it's okay. I mean I'm used to how things go, but I'm glad that I didn't have to keep asking for more time off on my duty night. But so, but yeah, no. You know, I think I'm very excited to be part of it. I think I think for me, I just kind of have to do some reconciliation between what is inevitably going to have to happen, which is construction of the park.
I hear you on that one. For a minute, I was afraid you were going to throw in the towel.
No.
Good.
I mean, I think, it's whatever is put there needs to be done deliberately, and I think we have a good group to do that.
Good.
Okay.
Good. Okay. Does everyone have a town email?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. And you can forward it to get to your private email to save hours of time trying to get into Outlook 65, whatever it's called now, right? I highly recommend. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn? And our next meeting will be March 2nd, 7 p.m. Wednesday, March 2nd, 7 p.m. on Zoom. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn? So moved.
moved.
Okay. Dan, okay, do I have a second?
Second the motion.
Okay, we got that one too. All right, let's go through it. I think Dan, aye or nay?
But so like in New Hampshire, we always did yes or no. But
Oh,
so-
that's so much better. It sounds
Right.
so much less like reenactment. Okay.
Aye.
All right, Andrew? All right, and who else do we have? Grant?
This is to adjourn, is that correct?
Yes, motion to, we have to vote to adjourn. It's
Aye.
another one of those charming things. Okay, and Landry, aye, and James?
Aye.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned. I will see you in
Whoa,
2 weeks.
did we set a time for our next meeting?
Yes, March
Yes.
2nd, Wednesday, March 2nd at 7 p.m. on Zoom. All right. Okay, good night,
Okay.
everybody. Good to
Okay,
meet you.
thanks.
And
Thanks, everyone.
I'll see you in
This-
2 weeks.
Okay.
Before,
If you have questions, email me.
got it. Okay. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, bye.
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 guys.